The pale light of Polis Massa illuminated the medical room where Padme Amidala struggled between life and death. The droids worked tirelessly while Obi-Wan Kenobi watched with a heavy heart. Bail Organa was by his side, hands clasped in silent tension. When the twins were finally born, their cries echoed through the sterile station. Padme, though extremely weak, slowly opened her eyes. Her breathing was irregular, but there was a spark of determination that Obi-Wan himself recognized as the willpower that had always characterized her. Obi-Wan approached her, holding her hand gently. "Padme, you need to rest. The babies are healthy." She tried to speak, but only a whisper came from her lips. "Anakin, where is Anakin?" The Jedi Master closed his eyes for a moment, fighting against the pain those words caused. "He died on Mustafar, Padme. He's gone." Padme felt tears stream down her face, but something inside her refused to collapse completely. Bail stepped forward, his voice firm but gentle. "Padme, you and the children cannot remain here. The Emperor cannot discover the twins. Come with me to Alderaan, you'll be safe under my protection." Before Padme could respond, Yoda's ancient and wise voice echoed through the room. "Agree that hidden they must remain, but on Alderaan, no. Too close to the center of the galaxy, that planet is. The Emperor's eyes, everywhere they are." Obi-Wan thought for a moment, recalling distant and forgotten systems. "Dantooine," he suggested. "It's remote, sparsely populated, and has facilities that can be adapted. The Empire rarely looks at that sector." Yoda nodded slowly, his cane tapping on the floor. "Wise choice, this is. To Dantooine we will go." Bail agreed immediately. "I'll provide supplies, medical droids, everything you need. Mon Mothma will also help us. She's trustworthy." Padme, still weak, squeezed Obi-Wan's hand tighter. "Thank you," she said, her voice gaining a bit more firmness. "For my children, for everything." In the following months, the former senator recovered her strength on Dantooine. Bail and Mon Mothma visited regularly, bringing supplies, news, and hope. The medical droids cared for Padme efficiently, but it was Mon Mothma who spent the most time by her side. The two women talked for hours about the state of the galaxy, about the horrors of the Empire, about how the Senate had become a farce. Padme held Luke in her arms while Leia slept in the nearby cradle. "We had ideals, Mon. We fought for democracy, and now look at what we've become." Mon touched her friend's shoulder. "It's not over, Padme. There's still resistance." It was during one of these visits that Padme expressed something that had been maturing in her mind. "Bail, Mon, we need to organize. We can't simply hide and hope the Empire collapses on its own." Bail leaned forward, interested. "What do you suggest?" Padme looked at the twins sleeping peacefully. "There are senators, leaders, people who always opposed Palpatine even before the Empire. If we could gather them here in secret, we could form something greater." Bail smiled for the first time in months. "I'll start making discreet contacts immediately." Mon Mothma squeezed Padme's hand. "This is dangerous, but necessary. I'm with you." Weeks later, small groups began arriving on Dantooine. They came in discreet civilian ships, using false documents and tortuous commercial routes to avoid imperial attention. Discontented senators who saw what the Empire really was, military personnel who had refused to serve under the new brutal orders, idealists who still believed the Republic could be restored. Each arrival brought renewed hope. Padme received them personally at the modest facility she now called home, with Luke and Leia sleeping in an adjacent room under the watchful care of trusted droids. She had prepared for this moment, carefully choosing her words, knowing this speech could define everything that would come after. When everyone was gathered, she stood before them, and the room fell into expectant silence. "My friends," Padme began, her voice clear and strong echoing through the room. "We have lost much. We lost our republic, our freedom, our loved ones, our faith that good will always prevail." Her voice trembled slightly as she thought of Anakin, but she continued with renewed determination. "I saw senators who once spoke for justice now bow in submission. I saw entire worlds subjugated by military force. I saw the Senate, that great institution that should represent trillions of voices, become nothing more than a theater of approval for a tyrant's decrees. But as long as there are people willing to stand against tyranny, as long as there are those who remember what democracy meant, hope is not dead. And all of you here, risking everything simply by coming, are living proof of that. She paused, letting her words resonate, then continued with growing passion. I saw what apathy can do. I saw how fear paralyzes even the bravest. For years we watched while Palpatine accumulated power, always with excuses, always with justifications, always promising it was temporary. We allowed democracy to be eroded piece by piece because each piece seemed too small to be worth fighting for. That's the lesson we must learn. We cannot allow complacency to define us again. We cannot wait until it's too late. Mon Mothma, seated among those gathered, watched Padme with admiration. This was the leader the galaxy needed. Bail smiled discreetly, knowing he had made the right choice in supporting this cause from the beginning. Padme looked at each face present, connecting with each person individually. Today, here on Dantooine, we are not just hiding like frightened fugitives. We are planting the seeds of something greater, something that will grow and spread to every corner of the galaxy. An alliance of free worlds, of people who refuse to bow to the Empire, who remember what it means to live without fear. We will be the voice of those who have been silenced. We will be the hope of those who have lost hope. We will be the Rebel Alliance. The words echoed through the room with almost physical power, and for a moment there was only silence as everyone absorbed the magnitude of what was happening. Then, one by one, those present began to applaud. The applause started slowly but grew to become deafening, people standing, some with tears in their eyes, all feeling they were part of something historical. Bail stood up, moved in a way he rarely showed. Padme, you just started a revolution. What you did here today will be remembered by history as the moment resistance truly began. Mon Mothma smiled through the tears that flowed freely down her face. What should have taken years to happen, what we thought would need countless secret meetings and careful negotiations, you did in one afternoon. A senator from Corellia stood up and spoke. I brought funds and contacts. I'm with you. Another military commander added, I have ships and willing crews. Wherever you want us to go, we'll go. One by one, each person present offered their resources, their connections, their lives for the cause. The Rebel Alliance had been born much earlier than original history predicted, and was born stronger than it could have been without Padme Amidala at its heart. The years that followed were of careful but steady growth. Luke and Leia grew under their mother's loving care, surrounded by figures who would become legends of the rebellion. The base on Dantooine expanded, first with temporary structures, then with permanent facilities hidden beneath the surface. Hangars were carved into the hills, communication rooms were established, barracks were built. With each passing month, more people arrived, each bringing unique skills. Engineers, pilots, soldiers, diplomats, all finding their place in the growing organization. Padme emerged as the natural leader, not by imposition but by universal consensus. Her vision, her eloquence, her unwavering determination inspired deep loyalty. Mon Mothma became her closest advisor and right hand, complementing Padme's passion with cold pragmatism when necessary. Bail coordinated the vast network of supplies and recruitment, using his position as Senator of Alderaan to channel resources without raising suspicions. He became a master of creative accounting, diverting funds, equipment, and even entire ships to the rebellion under the Empire's nose. Yoda and Obi-Wan, though focused on remaining hidden from the Inquisitors who hunted surviving Jedi, frequently participated in critical rebel missions. Their experience with the Force was invaluable for infiltration operations. Obi-Wan could use mind tricks to pass through checkpoints. Yoda could sense traps before they were triggered. The Alliance began conducting increasingly bold operations. Small sabotages at Imperial facilities evolved into rescues of political prisoners. Communication interception led to ambushes against supply convoys. Each small victory strengthened morale and attracted more people to the cause. Entire worlds began sending secret support, from credits to volunteers. When Luke turned 5, Obi-Wan sought out Padme in her office. She was reviewing reports from rebel cells in a dozen different systems, coordinating strategies, resolving disputes. She looked up and smiled at seeing the old Jedi. "Master Kenobi, what can I do for you?" Obi-Wan sat down, his expression serious. "It's time to begin Luke's training. He is sensitive to the Force, as is his sister, but Luke has the same restlessness Anakin had, the same need for action. If not properly trained, that energy could become dangerous." Padme felt a tightness in her heart hearing Anakin's name. Even after all these years, she still dreamed of him, still cried over the loss of the man she had loved. Some nights she woke in tears, others in anger. "He will be different," she said firmly, more to herself than to Obi-Wan. "He will know unconditional love, have a stable family, know he is valued for who he is, not for what he can do." Obi-Wan nodded, understanding Padme's unspoken fear. That's precisely why he must be properly trained. The Force is strong in him, stronger than in any young person I've encountered since Anakin. But you're right, he has something Anakin never really had. He has you, he has stability, he has a greater purpose that isn't intertwined with fear and unhealthy attachment. Padme considered for a long moment, then nodded. "Begin the training, but promise me, Obi-Wan, promise me that if you see any sign of the dark path, you'll tell me immediately." Obi-Wan placed his hand over hers. "You have my word, Padme. I won't fail Luke as I failed Anakin." Thus began Luke Skywalker's training under the tutelage of Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. Leia, in turn, remained closer to Padme, absorbing lessons in leadership, diplomacy, and strategy that would make her one of the most formidable political figures of her generation. The two children were different in almost every aspect, but equally brilliant. Luke was impulsive, always wanting to prove his worth, always seeking adventure. His training with Obi-Wan was punctuated by reprimands about patience and focus. Leia was calculating, observant, with a sharp intelligence that could dissect complex arguments and find weaknesses in any position. She often sat in strategic meetings with Padme, listening to rebel leaders debate tactics, absorbing everything like a sponge. Padme saw as much of herself in Leia as she saw of Anakin in Luke. It was at once comforting and terrifying. One day, when Luke was 12, Padme watched him train with Obi-Wan in the open fields of Dantooine. Luke executed saber movements, his form still imperfect but constantly improving. He argued with Obi-Wan about the need for more speed versus more precision, insisting he could do both simultaneously. Padme turned to Mon Mothma, who was beside her reviewing intelligence reports. "He's so much like him," she confessed quietly, knowing she would understand. "The same stubbornness, the same indomitable enthusiasm, the same absolute belief that he can overcome any obstacle through pure determination." "Does that scare you?" Mon asked gently, setting the datapads aside. Padme watched her son for another moment before responding. "Sometimes. I'm afraid he'll inherit not just Anakin's strengths, but also his weaknesses. The impulsiveness, the arrogance, the difficulty accepting limits. But then he does something, says something, and I see he's fundamentally different. He has a genuine kindness that isn't intertwined with fear. Anakin always had fear of losing people, of not being good enough, of being abandoned. Luke doesn't have those fears because he's never had reason to have them." Mon touched her shoulder with understanding. "He has something Anakin never truly had. He has you, a mother who is present and involved. He has stability, a home even if it's not conventional. He has unconditional love from an entire community. And most importantly, he has purpose that isn't based on external validation. Luke knows why we fight, understands the Alliance's ideals, isn't trying to prove anything to anyone." Padme smiled through the tears that threatened to fall. "Thank you, Mon, for being here, for everything. I don't know what I'd do without you." The two women shared an embrace, their friendship forged through years of shared struggle and sacrifice. In the field, Luke finally executed a sequence perfectly, and Obi-Wan praised him with a rare smile. "Progress, young Skywalker. There's hope for you yet." More than a decade passed, in relative peace, punctuated by increasingly bold rebel operations. The Alliance grew from a handful of idealists to a galactic network of resistance cells operating in hundreds of systems. Padme was known in secret as the General of the Rebellion, though few outside the inner circle knew her true identity. For most, she was simply the general, an almost mythical figure whose eloquence inspired and whose strategy won victories. Luke had become a young man, strong, his connection to the Force growing exponentially under Obi-Wan's patient tutelage. He had become one of the Alliance's best pilots, his Force-enhanced perception allowing reflexes no normal pilot could match. Leia, equally grown, demonstrated remarkable political and strategic skills that impressed even the most experienced officers. She frequently led diplomatic delegations, convincing neutral worlds to join the cause. It was during one of these ordinary meetings, with Padme deliberating supply routes with rebel commanders in the main strategy room and Luke training combat exercises in the nearby fields, that the base's sensors detected an unidentified ship approaching. Alarms sounded briefly before being silenced when correct identification codes were transmitted. But these codes were ancient, from a bygone-era Jedi codes that few still knew. Obi-Wan and Yoda exchanged surprised looks. Tension was evident when the ship's ramp slowly opened. From there emerged a figure Obi-Wan immediately recognized, though she was older and visibly marked by years of solitary struggle. Ahsoka Tano, Anakin Skywalker's former Padawan, had found her way to them. She descended the ramp with her montrals marked by battle scars, her sabers hanging from her belt, and an expression in her eyes that spoke of witnessed horrors. She brought news that would shake the rebellion's foundations to its core. Ahsoka entered the command room with measured steps, her presence immediately recognized by Obi-Wan. "Ahsoka," he said, surprise and caution in his voice. "How did you find us?" She looked around, identifying Padme, who slowly stood. "I have my sources, Master, but I didn't come here to talk about how I arrived. I came because there's something you need to know." Padme approached, studying Ahsoka's face. "What happened?" Anakin's former Padawan hesitated. "It's about Anakin." Obi-Wan immediately tensed. "Ahsoka, don't." But she continued, looking directly at Padme. "He's alive, Padme. Anakin Skywalker is alive." The silence that followed was deafening. Padme felt her legs weaken and Mon Mothma held her. "That's impossible," Padme whispered. "Obi-Wan told me he died on Mustafar." Ahsoka shook her head sadly. "He should have died, but the Emperor saved him. He was rebuilt, transformed. Now he is Darth Vader, Palpatine's right hand, the Empire's enforcer." Padme let out a sound that was half sob, half stifled scream. Obi-Wan closed his eyes, guilt weighing on him. "I sensed his presence. I wanted to protect her from the truth. It was better that she thought he had died as a hero than to know he had become a monster." Padme pulled away from everyone, her hands trembling. "My Anakin, that brilliant and passionate young man, became this? A servant of the Emperor?" Ahsoka approached her. "I faced Vader. There's still something of the Anakin we knew in there, but it's buried under layers of hatred and pain. Padme, he's dangerous. He's responsible for countless atrocities." Padme looked at Ahsoka with tear-filled eyes. "And my children? Does he know about Luke and Leia?" Ahsoka shook her head. "As far as I know, no. But if the Emperor discovers Anakin had children, they'll hunt them relentlessly." Yoda, who had remained silent until then, struck his cane on the floor. "The will of the Force, this is. Revealed at the right time, this secret was." But Yoda's words proved prophetic in a sinister way. Weeks after Ahsoka's revelation, the Empire's communication systems began pulsing with a disturbing discovery. In the medical archives of Polis Massa, deeply buried but not completely erased, there were records of Padme's delivery. The Emperor discovered first. He summoned Vader to his throne. "Lord Vader," Palpatine said with a voice dripping with venom and satisfaction. "Seems your wife did not die as you thought. In fact, she survived long enough to give birth." Vader felt something break inside him. "Padme lives?" Palpatine smiled cruelly. "Lives and has your children. Twins, judging by the records. Find them, Lord Vader. Bring them to me." The hunt began with a ferocity the galaxy hadn't seen since the Empire's early days. Destroyer after destroyer was sent to scour remote systems. Rebel bases were attacked with renewed brutality, not just to suppress the rebellion, but to extract information about Padme and her children's location. The Alliance found itself under unprecedented pressure. Sabotage missions became riskier, each operation could be a trap. Yoda and Obi-Wan intensified Luke's training, knowing confrontation was inevitable. Ahsoka led rescue and sabotage missions alongside rebel cells, her experience being crucial to keeping the Alliance alive. Luke, now nearly adult at 19, begged to participate in the most dangerous missions. It was during a rescue operation on Lothal that the inevitable happened. Luke, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka had infiltrated an Imperial facility to free rebel prisoners. The mission was going well until the doors closed and a figure dressed in black entered the room. Darth Vader was there, his mechanical respirator creating a terrifying rhythm. Luke activated his lightsaber immediately, the green blade illuminating his determined face. Vader tilted his head, studying the young man. "You are strong in the Force, young one. Come with me, join the Emperor, and your destiny will be grand." Luke gripped his saber tighter. "I'll never join you." Obi-Wan emerged from the shadows, his own saber ignited. "Sover, Vader." The confrontation exploded into a deadly ballet of lights and shadows, until Ahsoka also entered the battle. She deactivated her saber and spoke. "Anakin, Master, there's still time." Vader paused, looking at her. "Ahsoka." She tried to reach him through words. "You don't need to serve the Emperor. There's another way." Vader responded coldly. "You are choosing death then." But assessing the situation, 3 skilled opponents against him, Vader retreated. "This isn't finished," he said before disappearing into the darkness. The attack on Dantooine was only a matter of time. The Imperials had tracked rebel transmissions, followed supply routes, and finally triangulated the Alliance headquarters location. When the Star Destroyer appeared in Dantooine's orbit, everyone knew Judgment Day had arrived. Padme was in the command room when the alarm sounded. Mon Mothma beside her began coordinating civilian evacuations. Bail, through hologram from Alderaan, was already mobilizing the rebel fleet. But everyone knew it would take hours for them to arrive. Vader transmitted a message directly to the base. "Surrender Luke Skywalker to me and the civilians will be spared." Padme felt anger boil inside her. "Never," she whispered. Luke entered the command room, his saber attached to his belt. "Mother, I need to go. It's me he wants." Padme held her son's face with both hands. "You are my son, Luke. I won't hand you over to that monster." Obi-Wan placed his hand on Luke's shoulder. "Together, we are stronger. We won't yield to his demands." Vader didn't wait for an answer. Stormtroopers began descending in landing pods, and explosions echoed through the base. Rebels fought desperately but were outnumbered. Yoda, moving with surprising agility for his apparent age, disappeared into the confusion. "Go to the source of evil, I will," he said enigmatically. Padme understood immediately. Yoda was going after the Emperor on the orbital ship. Vader personally descended to Dantooine's surface, walking through debris and fire like an apparition of nightmares. Stormtroopers followed him, eliminating resistance. He reached the center of the rebel headquarters where a determined group remained. It was then that Padme emerged from the shadows, alone and unarmed. Vader stopped abruptly. "Padme." His mechanical voice carried something that could be confusion or pain. She looked at the black mask. "I still can't believe you're Anakin. Remove the mask." Vader hesitated, something his subordinates had never seen him do. Then, slowly, his mechanical fingers reached for the clasps. The mask released with a hiss of depressurization. The face Padme saw made her recoil in horror. Deep scars cut through pale, burned skin. The yellow eyes of the dark side stared at her, but beneath them she could still see traces of the man she had loved. Tears streamed down Padme's face. "Oh, Ani, what have they done to you?" Vader took a step forward. "Come with me, Padme. Bring our children. Together we'll rule the galaxy. We'll bring order and peace." Vader repeated the same speech from Mustafar. Padme shook her head. "That's not peace, Anakin. It's tyranny. You became everything you swore to destroy." It was then that Obi-Wan and Luke emerged from different directions. Luke positioned himself in front of his mother, his saber still not ignited but ready. Obi-Wan activated his blue blade. "Anakin, this needs to end." Vader began reactivating his mask but stopped when another figure appeared. Leia courageously emerged from where she had hidden, defying her mother's orders. She stood beside Luke, her brown eyes firm and defiant. Vader was completely paralyzed, his mechanical breathing seeming to fail. He looked between the twins and Padme. Padme saw recognition in Vader's yellow eyes. "She has your eyes," Vader said, his voice breaking through the modulator. Padme and Anakin. In that charged moment of silence, a transmission arrived on Vader's communicator. An Imperial officer's voice trembled. "Lord Vader, the Emperor, he's dead." The news hit everyone like lightning. Yoda had fulfilled his impossible mission. The small Jedi Master had confronted the galaxy's most powerful Sith Lord and prevailed. Bail, who had arrived with the rebel fleet, sent confirmation. "The Imperial ship is under our control. The Emperor has been defeated." Obi-Wan lowered his saber slightly. "It's over, Anakin. Put down your weapon. There's no more Emperor to serve, no more excuses." Luke took a step forward, unarmed but brave. "Father, do as he says. There's still good in you, I can feel it. I saw how you looked at Leia, at Mother. The man you were is still there." Vader remained motionless for a long moment. Then, slowly, he deactivated his lightsaber. The cylinder fell to the dusty ground with a dull thud. He turned to the stormtroopers accompanying him. "Lower your weapons. Surrender." The command was transmitted through the Imperial network, and one by one, soldiers throughout the base began to surrender. The Battle of Dantooine ended not with more bloodshed, but with the surrender of the very symbol of Imperial terror. In the months that followed, the transition was chaotic but hopeful. Padme was elected by the Reformed Senate as the new Chancellor, her leadership of the Rebel Alliance proving her capability. Anakin was kept in custody, not in a brutal prison, but in facilities where he could be treated and confront his crimes. Padme visited him regularly, sometimes with Luke, sometimes with Leia. The conversations were difficult, full of tears and anger and slow forgiveness. Anakin contributed crucial intelligence to dismantle Imperial remnants, his redemption being forged through actions, not just words. The Jedi Order was rebuilt in Coruscant, with Luke as one of its first new knights. Leia chose the path of politics, becoming a senator and eventually following her mother's footsteps. The galaxy had been saved not just by the force of arms, but by the force of love, family, and the refusal to give up on those lost in darkness. And as the stars shone over Coruscant, a new era of hope truly began.